So to the chairperson of the APSS organizing committee and the co-chair, as well as the organizing committee, our partner, the Ghana Chamber of Commerce, our funding partners, UNECA and others, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are here present, and others of you, many others of you, in fact, who are joining us virtually. Allow me to state all protocol observed to avoid the singling out of the many of you who are here, as well as to exempt others who come after me from going through this long list of names of really important people who have graced this occasion, as well as to really save a bit of time that we can salvage for what will be a sumptuous program that we have arranged for you. In short, feel welcome and at home with us this morning. It is really my singular pleasure to welcome you all to APSS series number 2. And before we go further into our program, I'd like to invite Mrs. Victoria Haja, the first Vice President of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce, to come and open us in a word of prayer. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. May we pray. Our Heavenly Father, we are thankful to you for today, this day that you have made, this day that we have been praying into, that this APSS has come to be, that we are gathered here because you've made it possible. We ask that your presence will be here to enable us to have a fruitful summit, that each speaker and all of us put together, the panelists and all of us, will join hearts and minds to bring out solutions to even hard questions that will be put to us here. We thank you that you have given us this opportunity to make the difference in Africa. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Madam, for opening us and ushering us this way. In terms of the normal protocols of COVID, we would ask you to observe those protocols, given that we still have to be compliant with the rules and regulations. So we ask you to be wearing your mask at all times, and only when you come address us would we exempt you from that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you. As well as the allowing us to have the program unhindered, we would ask you to either switch off your cell phones or put them on silent, so we would not be bothered by that. Shortly, we'll be welcoming the honorable member of parliament, who will be our keynote speaker address on behalf of the minister that will be entering just in a moment. If there are any other protocol issues that we need to be aware of, we'll be announcing them as we go. So my role was to ask you this morning to feel welcome and welcomed at this summit, at the stage. Thank you so much. It is my singular honor, therefore, on the threshold and the success of our Series 1, Righting the Wrongs of Doing Business in Africa, that the current theme of Awakening Africa's Sleeping Giants in the implementation of the Regional Economic Commissions, RECs, and Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, leveraging on the strategic opportunities for Africa's turnaround, that this series aims to move from deliberations to dedications through action-oriented implementations of gains realized from the well-articulated program that we have outlined for you today, beginning with the welcome address shortly, as well as the opening and keynote addresses. We will pivot this summit on a multi-stakeholder oriented economics of scale in the context of our REC's already intimated to delve into agriculture, manufacturing, infrastructure, blue economy, legal, regulatory, and standardization policies, social and solidarity and peace, new financial frontiers, common currency, intra-continental tourism, digitization, and the showcasing of young women entrepreneurs. If I may just whet your appetite with just a few of what we have in store for you in what will really be a gastronomic encounter of serious proportion. I thought you'd clap for me. That said, I probably should tell you my name is Sam Doga. Not that it's important, when you're a program director like this, you probably don't get introduced. You just do your thing. So it's just for you to know, just in case you want to find out what my name is. Our day will formally end at 1700 hours. We will have lunch at 12:30 daily. This is so that for those who are watching virtually, you can synchronize your time conditions. And also to state that from 1700 hours, it's actually a time where we can get into exchanges of ideas, projects, or business cards. So really that will go more another part of our time together, if you don't mind. So feel free to exchange contacts, to exchange ideas, to exchange pleasantries. That said, may I take this opportunity then to invite Mr. Adeyinka Ademi, who is the Senior Advisor at UNICA, to welcome us all this morning. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this. My name is Yinka Ademi. As you've heard, I'm a Senior Advisor with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, charged with trade policy advocacy and the harmonization, modernization, and functionality of customs administration across 54 countries in Africa in the context of CFTA. I want to thank you for your energy, for your participation in this meeting, and this is manifested in this turnout. I also thank our colleagues who have woken up at various times. Somebody just called me from New York, still signed on in this meeting at 6 a.m. And this is the same as other people from Australia, all around the world. I thank you for your engagement, for your vision, and for your belief in the possibility of regional integration, the possibility of a bigger market consisting of $1.3 trillion in GDP and 54 countries. This is huge. And this is why we have partnered with APSS in beyond one simple objective. How do you make the best of this agreement? Simply, how do you make money as private sector operatives? How do you make money in this? Because at the end of the day, this is the only important thing. If you are not making money, then it's just another agreement. So we have resolved with APSS, with the other chambers of Commerce across Africa, with, in particular, the African Business Council, which will be holding another AU Private Sector Summit in Cairo in a few weeks. We have resolved to bring everybody together so that you become one powerful house in terms of private sector. Now, then, if you are together, you can strategize, you can problem solve, you can face serious challenges also together. Now, let me say that this program, as well as the first one, and I dare say, perhaps the third one, also, it's been organized with the tremendous financial support of the European Union in the framework of a project we established together, EU ECA project on sensitization regarding ratification and implementation of CFTA. So I just want to put that on record and thank the European Union for the continued support of APSS, actually, and for private sector in Africa. So as I said, the objective, the simple objective remains the same. We need to facilitate business linkages between the private sector and the CFTA as an agreement, behind the simple goal of making it work, making money so that you can deal with all the challenges together, challenges of financing, of intellectual property, challenges of dealing with the rules of origin protocol, all of this stuff together, and then we can start making money. I was in Benin, Cotonou, 2 days ago with the Chambers of Commerce there. And they were talking about the problem they had. They wanted sugar. Some businesses there wanted to import sugar. And I said, Swaziland. Swaziland is a small country, but it produces enough sugar for the whole of Africa. They said, yes, we know. But do you know that to bring sugar from Swaziland to Cotonou is 10 times more expensive than to go get it from China? This is the reality. The reality of our infrastructure deficit. We need to deal with it, and I dare say we are dealing with it. I'm sure you know about the PIDA, the Program on Infrastructure Development in Africa, which has been endorsed by our African heads of state. So we are dealing with this, but there's so many challenges remaining that all of us have to be, all hands must be on deck. You know, one of the critical challenges that we are facing is, believe it or not, that of disinformation and misinformation regarding CFTA. Imagine that an advisor to the president of any country, or to the prime minister of any country, or even to the minister of any country, could say, Excellency, this thing is not good for our country, without any basis, without any analysis. Just, it could be misinformation, which is just a mistake in restating fact, or disinformation, which is a deliberate falsification of information that is available. So this is going on around the landscape of CFTA. We know this, and we are doing something about it. We have commissioned a project, and the leader is in the room. He will be talking to you at some point. The project is to develop, first to establish the digital footprints of stakeholders, and many of you qualify, of stakeholders in 24 countries. We did a pilot for 4 countries. The whole idea is that we want to be able to understand, number one, what are the misgivings you have about CFTA, if you need studies, if you need analysis, so that we can provide the analysis in real time. Now, we are doing this, and Mr. Makinwa will tell you what it entails. So at the end of the day, what we are going to have is an application that you can freely download. It can tell you the latest thing about CFTA, And it can also tell you if somebody is misunderstanding anything, and then you correct it immediately. So this is going to be powerful. It's one of the things that we thought we will use to kind of keep the conversations going. Lastly, Mr. Chair, let me just say, appeal to everybody. Please register your names, your particulars, your information, contact information with our colleagues at the entrance. The reason is simple. The European Union and ECA want to keep these conversations going. They want to avail you of the opportunities that exist. Even Mr. Makinwa here too would like to be able to send stuff to you so that we can get you to places, not all of you, we cannot have all of you in Cairo, for example, but we find a way to make sure that we stay engaged in the conversations regarding the ratification and the implementation of CFTA, so that, keep in mind, for the single reason, make money from this agreement. You have to make money from it by trading across borders, goods and services, and then our continent can really prosper, and we can really achieve the Africa that we really, really want and deserve. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much for such a resounding opening speech. When you mentioned that we should make a list of our names at the back, since you were talking money, I thought you were going to give us some for those on the list. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ademi. That was really amazing to just capture some of your thoughts in terms of your vision for this continent, but in particular, the information dissemination. I think that will be really critical for us to keep on the same page. So thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, a summit of this stature is practically impossible without the intersecting of a multiplicity of skills, from concept generation, program segmentation, logistical actualization, and finally even event management like we are going through right now. And those closer to the action will submit that none of this would have been possible without the unrelenting energy of Mr. J. Wendell Addy, who is the chairperson of APSS. It is really those of us who are junior to him who have been so amazed by the fact that he seems somehow to have this frequency of engagements, multitasking, and the hand-holding and everything in between, and somehow keeps going. I don't even know when he gets time to sleep. So if he can still be awake and address us, I would like to kindly invite him, and somebody might need to hold his hand to make it to the podium, but sir, really a job well done.
Thank you, Sam. Don't mind him. Behind me, he calls me a troublemaker. And the team calls me a troublemaker. I'm thankful and grateful to God that we are here today looking at what Africa could be transformed to, what Africa can eventually be. It's so I will try to shorten the speech. That is, I think, 14 pages, but I'll try to shorten it. Greetings from the APSS family. We thank God for your safe arrival here for this important gathering to contribute to the many ongoing dialogues in charting the pathways to the Africa we want. For starters, we'd like to recognize the appreciation and presence of Her Excellency, Madam Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Trade, representing His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana. Thank you, Madam Minister, for coming. The REX and AfCFTA protocols signed by our heads of states are gifts from the people of Africa to the people of Africa. The challenge is, how do we value and appreciate these gifts in the context of REX and AfCFTA resulting from the implementation of the signed protocols? We know that there are several standing issues and challenges bordering on ratification, governance, law, budget, sovereignty, and others that are affecting the delivery and performance of these protocols. The question is, how can the private sector, acting under the umbrella of the African Business Council, to the REX and the African Union, propel the implementation of these protocols for the realization of the Africa we want? Permit me to share with you where I come from to where we are today about the APSS. I have served as a strong advocate for consumerism across the continent. I am one of the original drafters of what became the Consumer International Regional Office for Africa that took place in 1992 in Benin. In 2018, I was elected president of the Chamber of Commerce, subsequently elected executive member of the Federation of West African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In 2009, I served as a member of the Executive Council of the Chamber of Commerce of Liberia and was part of the body that established the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce. So my heart, my thinking, my upbringing, all embedded with the Chamber of Commerce. In latter years, part of the 2018, I stood in the halls of the Chamber of the African Union and fought for the recognition of the Pan-African Union Chamber of Commerce, Pan-African Chamber of Commerce, as a critical body in the newly established African Business Council, ABC. The African Business Council was established by a resolution of the heads of states. I also believe that we need a strong independent REX. We need a strong independent EU Commission. Our heads of state signed the protocols, and these organizations, having drafted these documents, have challenges in implementing them. It is time that the private sector get involved to ensure that these commissions, whether the REX at the REX level or at the EU Commission level, be empowered to implement the protocol signed by the heads of states. For example, trade integration requires free movement of people on the continent. Trade integration requires acceptable and unrestricted currencies across the continent of real value. Trade integration requires the application of economies of scale in the context of REX and the AfCFTA. This involves the conversion of our natural resources. This involves an engaged and ongoing conversation with our industrialists for the conversion of our resources for continental use and export. Let me talk a little bit about that. The United States that we all rush to today was built by a few industrialists that had the ears of, or the hearing of those in government. It is critical, it is important that we begin to engage our industrialists, the likes of Dangote, the likes of Strive Masiwa, the likes of, we have a young man here, Nana Kwame Bidiako, and others in this process. Think about it. How do we build the roads from Cairo to Lagos if you do not get these people involved? How do we convert our natural resources if we do not get our leaders, our industrialists involved at the continental, regional and continental levels? These are the critical things that we need to begin to look into so that we can hasten the process of transforming the continent. Trade integration requires infrastructure. Again, we need these people. They have made it. The second largest refinery on the continent will be located, or is now located, in Nigeria. What does it mean? It requires a lot of feedstock. Can we produce the feedstock to support that industry, the refinery there? That is what Africa should be focused on. That is what AfCFTA is all about. To transform this continent, we have to get everyone hands on board. It's critical. We don't need to wait for 2063. It can be done in the next 15 to 20 years if we are committed. It can be done in the next 15 to 20 years if we are committed. Trade integration requires a Bill of Rights of an enabling business environment in Africa. Why do we need an enabling business environment in Africa? It is not just about financing. It is about rule of law. It is about a number of other things. It's about reaching out, setting out programs that we can lift the people on the fringes of life. It is about addressing the so-called greener pasture that our people seek abroad. In the absence of job security, in the absence of peace, instability happening across the continent. How do you build the road from Cairo to Lagos when there are unrest, civil unrest, all kinds of incidents occurring across the continent? Trade integration is about standardized clarity at all points of entry and departure. I was speaking to a DHL official who said to me, Wendell, this is so important for our business. He said, in one country, different set of rules. In the next country, there's different set of entry rules. It has to be somewhat a common practice. It has to be a common practice across the continent. Trade integration, leading to the fourth industrial revolution, requires strong, I have to emphasize it, strong academia program, strong TVET program. We cannot talk about transforming the continent. We cannot realistically talk about transforming the continent without the key participation of academia. The business, the private sector, the public sector, we all need academia to function. How then can we now talk about AfCFTA and minimize the role of academia in the process? In that light, we're looking at introducing, and I will come to that later on, a trust fund. Why are we here today? Why are we here today? Why is it other unions on other continents function and ours not functioning? Primarily, we citizens and people of Africa who constitute the private sector are grateful to our governments for all of the regs and AU protocols they have signed, including Agenda 2063 and the gift of AfCFTA, which they have given to us. Think of AfCFTA as the only pathway. Think of regs as the only pathway for what we need to transform Africa. If we begin to produce and transform our natural resources to the benefit of the continent, the richest, I believe, continent in the world, we will have no reason, there will be no reason rather for our people to risk their lives at sea. One time I was looking at pictures to see what I had in a relative or friend, and I came across a friend of mine who was at sea and caught up in a camp, I believe it was in either France or Italy or someplace. It should not be happening. It should not be happening. Citizens and private sector must be proactive within the frameworks by not waiting for governments to do everything, else it will not be realized. We tend to wait for government. We're waiting for the government. I've heard this repeatedly in several countries. We're waiting for the government to do things. Education is key, first step. Let's see how we can help the government transform the educational system so that the lives of our best that are abroad can return and help to transform the continent in terms of providing the skill sets needed for the continent. The private sector must, I repeat, the private sector must be in the driver's seat. If I were ever to come back into this life again and got involved in politics, my best friends would be the Chamber of Commerce, labor, civil servants. Those leaders would be my best friends. Why? I would like to hear from them on a regular basis to guide me in formulating policies in the best interests of the country and the people. Private sector proactiveness is the reason we are here. Private sector must play a key role in transforming Africa. Now, we must do this from a standpoint of stakeholder engagement. The stakeholder engagement must comprise the private sector, academia, labor, CSO, and the public sector. It will be a perfect marriage where we just sit and engage transparently in the interests of the country and the interests of the people. APSS is more of a think tank body. It is not about competing or overshadowing the African Business Council. For reference, I nominated the lady who's now president of that organization. For reference, I'm the one who participated in drafting the position paper for the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce when the first set of draft documents was issued for the ABC. ABC is critical because we attempted back in 2009 to have representation at the AU so that the African leaders will hear directly from the private sector. It did not happen. we pulled together and we have supported the ABC, the establishment of the ABC. I want to thank Dr. Spio Cabral, who he said to me, Wendell, I'm retired. And I said to him, no, we have something important to do. And so together, we worked on a document overnight that was presented. That led to establishing a committee that eventually produced what is today the African Business Council. Dr. Spio, thank you. So ABC is our umbrella body for all businesses. And let me challenge every business to give the fullest support to the ABC, the African Business Council. They represent us at the AU. They happen to be the voice of the private sector at the AU. What we're doing here today, okay, we are looking at the enablers. We are looking at the enablers. What are some of the enablers for what we want to do in Africa? You have the protocols, the REX protocols, the AU protocols, and we must say thanks to our professionals at these organizations. It's time that we come in and help them dust off some of those files, some of the works that have been on the shelves for years. Good programs, but they're not being acted upon for a number of reasons. And I think it's critical we look at these things. As a governizing stakeholder think tank body, APSS Series 2 is themed on awakening Africa's sleeping giants in the implementation of the regional economic communities and the African continental free trade and leveraging strategic opportunities for Africa's turnaround. This here is critical. What are we referring to when we say awakening Africa's sleeping giants? Africa itself, by reference in terms of its resources, is a sleeping giant. Unfortunately, the data we have, they were not designed, they were not developed by us. It is time that Africa develops its own data. It is time we put our universities to work. It is time we know what we have by mapping out the natural resources of the continent. It's critical that we do this at the earliest. Each and every one of us happen to be a sleeping giant. We just have to face the reality of what's around us and move forward to awaken ourselves to act. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important, very important. I'll be out of your faces in a few minutes. It's important that we act, and we act now in the interest of the continent. I mentioned earlier about the movement of people for greener pastures in Europe and the West in general. How do we address this? At some point in time, I recall, and I stand corrected in the figure, the European Union had given us $16 billion for Africa to bring about some remedy to keep its people from migrating to the West. Unfortunately, I'm unable to tell you the status of that $16 billion today. But we have the jobs here. We have the natural resources here on the continent. We have everything here. We have the skill sets here on the continent. We had invited someone to who a part of the NASA program. The fiber we use today for internet was developed by an African, a Ghanaian, who will be here, in the, I think today or tomorrow, if not mistaken, Mr. Mensa. We intend to put on our website some of the things that Africans have done, the creation, what they have invented. That's a different subject that will be coming up during the conference. But these are some of the things that we want to do to awaken the consciousness that Africans can deliver. The drugs that we use today for Pfizer, an African took part or led that team. There's quite a bit we can do to transform our continent. My friend from Egypt, when I spoke to him about Mr. Aman, when I spoke to him about this program, he said to me, Wendell, all you're saying, you're right, but there's a critical element that's missing. Where is the role, or what should be the role of the private sector in lifting those people on the fringes of life? And he said to me, let us look at social solidarity and how we can engage the private sector to address this aspect. So that's one of the topic that we'll be discussing here. Africa suffers from the paradox of being the richest, but yet the poorest, and an embarrassment, poorest continent, but yet also an embarrassment to the continent. How do we change this? At the end of this program, we hope to come up with sound resolutions, projects to address some of these issues. We're not politicians. We just want to raise these issues as some of the critical enablers needed to transform the continent. We have Mr. Frank Mugini, who has been working on this for years with respect to gold. There's a gold rush in Africa, except that Africans are not rushing for gold in Africa. It's the fact. There's a gold rush in Africa, but the people rushing for gold in Africa are not Africans. We had a crash in 1987. If that should happen again, what would happen? We had technically, when all of the countries had to shut down in light of the COVID, you had an almost total economic collapse. Others produced money, printed the money. Well, when you print your money, it has less value. These are the practical things that we should look at as Africans, because we can have a strong currency in Africa. We should have to stop kicking the can down the road about common currency. We've been talking about this for years. For years. Where are we today? Are we thinking about the continent, or are we thinking about our respective countries when it comes to common currency? It is critical that we look at this. It is critical that we start building in our respective countries, those countries that have gold, start building up their own reserves. I'd like to commend the government of Ghana. I heard something along that line recently from the Central Bank of Ghana. I also heard, I know of the situation in Nigeria where they have invested some $240 million in trying to lift the people in the artisanal mining sector. In this country, some 300 million plus is generated by the artisanal miners in terms of taxes for the government in this country. So let me not bore you with some of my critical thinking, but I'd like to thank all of you for being here, and we look forward to a productive, constructive dialogue with positions and projects that we can collectively undertake in the interest of Mother Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eddie. That was a gigantic, gastronomical, gut-wrenching, gregarious presentation. You asked the question, what are we doing here? And I was worried what your answer would be. But I think you rightly, appropriately gave us an answer that is no longer about making our people go and seek green pastures elsewhere. It's really about making our pastures green. Thank you for that. That was awesome. Chambers of commerce have an existing footprint that will almost be impossible to recreate. You mentioned them as some of your best friends. This has been a network that we have leveraged to enable this summit to translate into reality. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Clement Amoko, the National, Regional, and Continental Chamber of Commerce, to give us his opening remarks.
Thank you so much, and good morning. The Honorable Deputy Minister for Ministry of Trade and Industry, representing the President of Ghana, Mame Doku Asiamajeyi, my sister, Brother Wendell, Chairman APSS, His Excellency Professor Abdullah Sheikh Ali, who is also the Deputy Minister of Finance for the Federal Government of Somalia, Dr. Eko Sfiugabra, the council members of GNCCI, I stand on all protocol reserve. I deem it a great privilege to deliver these opening remarks at the second series of the African Private Sector Summit, the APSS, organized through the collaborative efforts of the Association of African University, the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry as the host, and the funding from UNICA. Indeed, today marks yet another landmark event that has brought together distinguished personalities from the public and private sector, including governments, development partners, academia, private and business institutions, to deliberate and formulate solutions and workable activities for the implementation of Regional and Economic Commission and the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. On this note, let me commend the chairperson of APSS, Mr. J. Wendell Adi, and his team for his initiative and the enormous support shown from the collaboration institution and distinguished personalities towards this event. It is heartwarming to note that we are living in a dream of creating one African market that delivers real results for the people of Africa and its partners. distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Africa has come a long way in the short time with the commencement of AfCFTA, which has created enormous opportunities for Africa and the rest of the world. The largest free trade area in the world in terms of participation countries since the formation of the World Trade Organization. After 1995, Africa has experienced strong growth and impressive improvement in the social and human development indicators. Over 2/3 of the region's 45 countries recorded 10 or more years of uninterrupted growth. It means that it was very consistent. Over 2/3 of the regions, that's 45, there has been rapid growth in Africa. Africa's trade notably due to the demand from countries like India, China, and recently Turkey, which overtook the advanced economies as Africa's main trading partners. There have also been investments to improve public services, more infrastructure like schools, hospitals, housing, and roads have also been built. In addition, African countries have been consolidating their macroeconomic gains as well as democratic governance. The continent became an important destination for capital flows from both advanced and emerging market economies. A number of frontier market economies in Africa, such as Kenya, Senegal, Zambia, and Ghana, issued Eurobonds and became more closely integrated into global financial markets. The region has more educated population and sharp decline in infant mortality. It also has the highest share of the world of adults in the process of starting and running new businesses. Further, Africa has the younger entrepreneurs than in other developing regions with a median age of 31. Ladies and gentlemen, the private sector plays a leading role in Africa's economy, as Mr. Wendell had explained earlier. As noted by the African Development Bank, the private sector accounts for over 80% of the total production, 2/3 of the total investment, 3/4 of total credit to the economy, as well as provide jobs for about 90% of the employed working age population. Given these contributions, it is imperative that discussions that border on African economy, and for that matter, AfCFTA, should seek to actively engage private sector players in reaching consensus for our shared interests and accelerated growth. Recently, the disruption of opportunities wrought by COVID-19 had exposed the need to reassess strategies critical to building resilience and sustainable economy. In particular, exploring innovative ways of creating a sustaining a conducive business environment that unleashes the full potentials of the private sector as the engine of growth and wealth creating on the continent cannot be overemphasized. Available data shows that inter-Africa trade stands around 13% compared to 60%, 40%, and 30% inter-regional trade that has been achieved by Europe, North America, and Asia respectively. This could be attributed to the number of factors including but not limited to high operational charges, lack of infrastructure, bureaucracy, inefficiency, high transaction costs of moving goods across the border, lack of harmonization within the region, a little or no cooperation between carriers, as in the case of the air cargo. These challenges inhibit the full realization of the benefit of AfCFTA. To paraphrase our Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, he said, President of Ghana, the first president of Ghana, and the famous Pan-African leader, the best way to learn to be a continental free trade area is to be a continental free trade area. The issues of transport and logistics is at its core trade. Without a well-functioning transportation system, goods and services cannot reach consumers. There are ongoing projects to improve the infrastructure along the region's primary transport corridors. We need to commit resources and to further ensure that these projects are timely completed and measures put in place to harmonize the road transport guidelines address corruption. The Sea-Link project, an initiative of FEWASI and a brainchild of GNCCI, is critical to improving trade within ECOWAS sub-region by sea. I encourage the leaders of ECOWAS, national governments, national and regional chambers of commerce and industry, as well as industry giants, to provide financial and technical resources to its fruitful reality. We also need to rethink strategies to developing our railway system, given its unique leverage of getting loads of passengers to their respective destinations. In Europe, for instance, the railway system remains popular, with national governments subsidizing or owning entire network. Although the initial cost is high, public-private partnership, in the case of Africa, can be explored to enhance our transport system for free movement of goods and services across our continent. Finally, we need to increase cooperation between African airlines. The spirit of AfCFTA is togetherness, and we must grow the market together other than opting for rivalry. National governments and private sector players must act in concert to ensure that the airline industry provides a viable alternative for free movement of people, goods, and services. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the message for today is simple. The die has been cast, and this places a responsibility on us to collectively work together to rationalize trade negotiations, reduce the cost of doing business, support industrialization, and stimulate cross-border infrastructure projects under AfCFTA. I cannot overstate how important trade is to Ghana, that is our dear country, but also to the continent Africa, and how close it is linked to our prosperity. The evidence in favor of free trade is irrefutable. It creates jobs, boosts income and prosperity, and puts us on the world market. There's so much gain from advancing the free trade. As a Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we remain committed to providing bespoke business support services to enable the business community thrive. We are proud setting our businessmen and women succeed, and this we will not stop advocating their cause. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me to end my opening remarks with these two quotes. The first is an African proverb which goes like this: the best preparation for tomorrow is to make sure today work is superbly done. The work is superbly done. The second is a quote from Osagifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influence that keep us apart. It is my fervent expectation that this summit will deliver solutions and workable activities for the implementation of the Regional and Economic Commission and the African Continental Free Trade that addresses private sector concern and helps deepen inter-Africa trade for our mutual benefit. I wish us all a successful summit, and thank you all for your attention. Akwaba, Wizo, Maraba. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, for those remarks. I kind of think of three words that I can summarize what I think I heard, and I hope I'm not too limiting, but at least I heard Continental, I heard collaborative, and I think I heard changes. So I think we have a lot of work on our hands to try and make this continent work going forward. So thank you for those kind remarks, challenging thoughts for us to go forward with. Ghana was particularly selected as host, as the founding nation for Africa's independence, and you rightly cited the founding fathers' sentiments of solidarity. And I think I like his remarks when he said that Africa's independence would remain meaningless unless all of Africa achieves the same. I believe all of Africa is here. For that reason, we have no excuse but to appropriately bring into contention that meaning of our togetherness collaboration, which we heard about, to say, can we come together and make this continent work? So it is with these words that I would like to introduce our address by the Honorable Nana Ama Dukua Asima Ajay. I hope I've said it correctly. We must get together more often so I can learn to say all these names. By the way, you people from this part of the world have much longer names than the part of the world where I come from. My name is Sam. Look at that. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You tried. There's been a few times when people attempt trying to call out my names, and there are times when I'm actually surprised how it turns out. So I think you were that close. Congratulations. The chairperson of Africa Private Sector Summit, APSS, Mr. Wendell Adi, HE Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, I hope I got it, Chakwera, President of the Republic of Malawi and the chair of the Southern African Development Community, who's apparently joining us virtually. And I see a former Minister of State, former Minister for Trade and Industry, Dr. Ekos Biogaber. Mr. Clement Amwako, the President of Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, representing the National, Regional, and Continental Chambers. Your Excellencies and highly distinguished panelists, moderators and invited guests, friends in the media, ladies and gentlemen, I deliver this on behalf of the Minister for Trade and Industry, the Honorable Alan Chemartin, who was supposed to represent the President, but unfortunately, due to other equally important engagements, he wasn't able to show up. And he tasked that I represent him here and deliver everything he would have been delivering here to the letter. I wish you a good morning. And as he says, let me express my profound gratitude to the chairperson and the executives of the Africa Private Sector Summit for the invitation extended to me to deliver the opening address. Indeed, the organizers could not have selected a more suitable theme for this conference, especially when Africa has taken the bold decision by coming together to establish a single continental market. Let me also extend to you all a very warm welcome to our dear country, Ghana, particularly for the distinguished dignitaries, business leaders, and academics from academia from other sister African countries, as well as the delegations from other regional and continental organizations. Mr. Chairman, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, the case for an integrated market for Africa has never been in doubt. In spite of the skepticism associated with it, it is a historical fact that the most developed regions of the world are also the regions with the highest levels of market integration. Regrettably, Africa still remains the least integrated region in the world. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, about 15% of Africa's total trade, that is exports and imports, occurs within Africa. compared to 67% of Europe, 60% of Asia, and 46% of the Americas. The paradox of Africa being the most richly endowed continent and yet the poorest in terms of development outcomes could partly be attributed to the unfortunate situation of low integral regional trade. Distinguished guests, it is in pursuit of an integrated framework that can significantly increase the level of trade among African countries that in January 2012, the heads of state of the African Union at their annual summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, took a strategic decision to work towards realizing the dream of establishing a single continental market for Africa to boost intra-African trade. Since that decision was adopted, extensive preparations and negotiations were carried out by members of states, finally culminating in the historic AU Summit decision in Kigali on March 21st, 2018, which formally concluded the first phase of negotiations for the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. As you may be well aware, the AfTA is a single market duty-free, quota-free trading bloc covering the entire African continent with a total population of 1.38 billion and a combined gross domestic product of almost 3.5 trillion US dollars. The AfTA is the most significant development in Africa since the establishment of the Organization of African Union in 1963. It is the world's largest free trade area, second only to the World Trade Organization in terms of the number of member states. Indeed, if Africa was a sleeping giant with the AfTA, it has awakened with a roar of the pride of African lions. Distinguished guests, the successful implementation of the AfTA will bring many benefits to our continent. First, it will increase the level of intra-African trade through better harmonization and coordination of trade within the African continent. It is estimated that intra-African trade will increase by as much as 35 billion US dollars per annum, or 52% by 2022. That's in a couple of months. Secondly, it will address the challenge of small fragmented markets in Africa by creating a single continental market, which will lead to economies of scale. Thirdly, it will add value to Africa's abundant natural resources and promote economic diversification and industrialization. Fourthly, it will promote the development of regional value chains and facilitate cross-border investment in Africa. Fifth, it will open up market access opportunities for small, medium enterprises in Africa on preferential trade terms. Sixth, with a population of 1.38 billion, estimated to reach 2.5 billion by 2050, Africa will be a very attractive destination for foreign direct investment because of its market size, with the potential for joint venture and enhanced local content. Seventh, it will deepen the integration of Africa into global markets through supply chain arrangements and other forms of subcontracting transactions. Eighth, Africa will improve in terms of trade with the rest of the world by earning higher values for its exports through value addition. Ninth, the AfTA will enhance benefits to consumers in Africa through lower prices of goods imported from within Africa. And finally, 10th, but not the least, it will significantly increase employment and opportunities in Africa particularly for the youth and other vulnerable groups. Distinguished guests, before the African Union successfully established the AfCFTA in 2019, when in Niamey, Niger, the AU Heads of State Summit fully endorsed the operational instruments for the AfCFTA. Some 4 years earlier, precisely in September 2015, world leaders adopted the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development, which outlined 17 goals. The overarching rationale for these sustainable development goals is to eradicate poverty, protect the planet, and end inequality. Included in the 17 SDGs are the eradication of poverty through inclusive economic growth that provides sustainable jobs and promote equality, infrastructure, investment, sustainable industrial development, integrating small-scale industries into value chains and markets, and then sustainable agriculture. As indicated earlier, the AfCFTA seeks to increase intra-African trade and improve the competitiveness of industries and enterprises operating in Africa. To achieve these objectives, the AfCFTA is not just focused on liberalization of trade in goods, but also services liberalization, trade facilitation, addresses non-tariff barriers to improve access to markets, intellectual property rights, and establishing opportunities in the e-commerce sector. It is obvious that the effective implementation of the AfCFTA can lead to significant progress in the attainment of the SDGs by Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it is against this background that the role of engineering becomes critical in achieving both the objectives of the AfCFTA and SDGs. The historic milestone of starting AfCFTA trading from 1st January 2021 has ushered in new age of industrialization in Africa, along with its enormous opportunities for engineers to collaborate with policymakers and professionals in developing projects and programs to support the emerging industrial renaissance. Africa is noted for its wealth of natural resources, which require innovative engineering to convert them into commercially consumable products for both domestic and foreign markets. It is therefore a challenge to you, African engineers, to lead this crusade to help Africa reduce its dependence on foreign producers by helping to build the productive capacity of SMEs operating on the continent. In addition, the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted global supply chains, has also imposed both grave challenges on businesses as well as opportunities for exploitation. The lessons learned as a result of the pandemic makes it even more urgent for the continent to collectively harness the talents and ingenuities of her professionals, particularly engineers, to improve in intra-African trade, thereby achieving the goals of African Union Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and the SDGs. For example, under the Action Plan for Boosting Intra-African Trade, clusters, buyout clusters, engineers should lead after member states to develop specific interventions, programs, and projects to enhance the capacities of the African countries to trade amongst themselves. Engineers should lead member states to determine the priority actions and complementary measures, particularly in the areas of ports, roads, railways, aviation, communication, and energy that will enable the companies harness benefits from AfCFTA. As I conclude, we in Ghana have worked collaboratively with Ghana Institution of Engineers in developing the National Action Plan for Boosting Intra-African Trade. And I urge members of the Federation of African Engineering Organization to support their respective ministries responsible for the implementation of the AfTA to speed up the process of establishing in the country action plans to improve intra-African trade. I thank you all for your kind attention. God bless us all.
Thank you so much, Madam, for such a sterling presentation on the turnaround strategy for Africa. In my own little professorial work, when a person gives you 10 points on a question, that's a comprehensively answered or responded to articulation. I would have definitely given you 11 out of 10. Well done. That was awesome. Those of us who have followed the recent UN proceedings will agree that there is a shift that's taking place in Africa's positioning as a key player. And those who also listened to His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Chakwera will actually agree that he definitely represents a breath of fresh air in challenging and specifying what needs to change at that global level. And as you know it, when people become presidents, that most of us would claim them to be our friends. I'm not joining that bandwagon per se, that he actually is a personal friend. So it is with utter humility that I would like to introduce my friend, His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, the President of the Republic of Malawi and the current Chairperson of SADC, to address the delegates virtually. Please enjoy, my friend.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, 3 months ago, Malawi assumed leadership of the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, with a clear mission to advance regional economic integration among its 16 member states. However, for my country in particular, our sights for economic activity are already set beyond the SADC horizon. This is because we have the privilege of chairing SADC in the context of new opportunities emerging through the reality of the ratified African Continental Free Trade Area. In fact, last week, I myself held talks with the Secretary General of the AfCFTA, His Excellency Mr. Wankele Mene, during which time I impressed upon him my conviction that Africa's time for exponential growth and collective prosperity has come. As a case in point, Malawi is the first country to export goods to another country outside of its regional economic zone under the auspices of the AfCFTA, as over a dozen trucks are currently on the road from Malawi with agricultural products headed for South Sudan. This kind of interregional trade is a mission whose time has come. For it makes no sense that Africans should produce so much and trade so little among themselves. After all, no one knows the African market better than Africans themselves. After all, no one knows the African market better than Africans themselves. No one knows how to trade with an African like another African. Go into any market in the heart of any capital city in Africa, and you will see Africans negotiating prices of goods and services among themselves with a dexterity that escapes folks from other continents. We therefore owe it to ourselves and our motherland to leverage this continent-wide instinct and knack for entrepreneurship. For that to happen, we must regard the African Continental Free Trade Area not as an achievement, but as an opportunity. The free trade area is merely the runway from which our economies must take flight. But the real work lies in making changes in our national policies and changes to our nationalist attitudes in order to make the most of this new opportunity. One area that I call on all countries to revisit is policies that regulate the movement of African nationals and goods across African borders and through ports of entry. It simply makes no sense for Africans to hold each other hostage at airports and border crossings, while Westerners are given preferential passage. Each regional economic bloc needs to lift those primitive restrictions with decisiveness. The same is true with the African air industry, where many economies have difficulty creating their own flagship airlines. I see no reason why a group of countries from the same regional economic bloc cannot explore the idea of collective ownership of one airline that eases movement across the continent. We need to embrace our African value of shared ownership. For many of us come from villages where the whole community collectively draws water from one well and drinks water under the shade of one tree. In our quest, therefore, to awaken the African economic giant that Africa is, we must remember that our Africanness is an asset, not a liability. It is ridiculous that a flight from one African country to another often costs more than a flight from Africa to Dubai. Whatever the causes of that, dysfunctional situation must be dealt with decisively if we are to implement the AfCFTA. Another area that could benefit from a uniquely African approach of sharing assets is electrification. So much of the potential of the AfCFTA depends on finding a solution to the unreliability of electricity generation and transmission in many of our nations. But we need not imagine that the only way to solve this is through the installment of turbines for hydro generation, or that the only way to have the lights on in African homes is for each country to be left to its own devices. More than ever now, we need to be talking about one electric grid for Africa, not multiple grids for multiple countries. This idea can easily be applied to so many other areas like telecommunications and tourism, agriculture, and health. But the principle behind that is the same. Africans are inextricably linked by culture, history, geography, and ethnicity. And the implementation of the free trade area must ride on those links, not ignoring them. I thank you for your attention.